Couple of emails, RAD at radradio.com. First one is from Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
Says, I wanted to see if you'd play the birthday song to wish my amazing husband, Kevin, a happy birthday. His special day isn't until Saturday, but since you made it clear earlier this week you will not be making up for the live show missed on Wednesday, I wanted to make sure he got some love from our favorite radio show. We are huge, not fat fans, who have been listening to the show since 1999.
Whoa, thank you so much.
And our maggots in training would love to hear Daddy's name on the radio while he drives them to school, which our livers are thankful to no longer be doing the long distance crap. Kevin will be 39.
Oh, that is so not old.
You're so not young.
So if you could pump up the volume, hashtag Technotronic, Google it, to make sure he hears it in his old age and let him know that we are so thankful for the rest of his days.
Oh, I felt so young at 39.
Did you know?
This is from David. I'm requesting a birthday shout out for myself, since I don't know anyone who would do it for me.
Oh, buddy.
I've been listening to you for over 20 years.
Dang.
This is my first time writing in. I turned, oh my God, 51?
Oh, come on.
Who showed him how to use email? Oh, wow.
I'll be 51.
Yeah,
And you have your grandchildren do it for you.
By the way, I'm the same David that won your second bucket of change. On the first time I've ever gotten through on one of your contests. Oh, that infuriates people.
Oh, happy birthday, now eat your f***ing cake. Happy birthday, or we'll punch you in the face.
Now, the first birthday wish alluded to the fact that we weren't on Wednesday morning with an unplanned absence. And yes, we're not doing a makeup show tomorrow. In fact, we're still taking Monday off because it's Columbus Day. We got this note from Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
She actually sent this in yesterday and said, Brandon, I got off work this morning and I was surprised pleasantly to hear you on the air. Great to know you're doing well. I met Mrs. Brandon for the first time Tuesday night, and even under the unfortunate circumstances, she was awesome.
Awesome.
I'm happy to know you're okay. Would you like to explain the unfortunate circumstances?
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering how much backstory I should give, but in a nutshell, 2020 has sucked for me, and I think it sucked for everybody. But over the last month or two, I've been dipping deeper into a depression due to anxiety and stress, and the world feels like it's falling apart. But simultaneously dealing with just some personal things that I'm going to therapy now, and so I'm unearthing a lot of stuff from.
Say it like I'm going to therapy.
Well, it's hard.
It's a good thing, but yeah, and it's hard because it unearths things that I've just been stuffing down for so long. So all of these, demons and things that I've been trying to ignore from my past seem to have been boiling up to the surface, and that in combination with some recent events led to Monday this week, I basically had to relinquish some responsibilities to relieve some pressure from myself, and so it was.
We call that, Brandon, delegation,
and that's one of my it's one of my nemesis. Is it nemesi? I just have a hard time letting things go because I'm a perfectionist and I have a certain way of doing things. And
if there was a supervillain called Delegation Man, to Brandon he'd be invisible.
Oh yeah,
he just wouldn't exist.
So I've been really working harder at doing that, and I did that. And so this week has been a very good week as far as Monday went, and then Tuesday came along. But Monday is always my gauntlet day, is what I refer to it as. I'm always recording podcasts. Most of the time I'm recording my podcast on Mondays, and it's just a longer day than usual because I like to front load my week so that I can skate into the weekend with less work to do. So I didn't sleep much. I hardly ate on Monday. Tuesday rolled around, and it just happened to be another great day. And it turned into a less of a great day as more work, and I'm not putting the blame on work on this. A lot of this has to do with just my time and how I prioritize things. But ultimately, Tuesday ended up being another long day. On my way home, I grabbed some dinner, and I got to my house about 8 o'clock in the evening, and we started eating our dinner, Mrs. Brandon and I, as we were eating dinner in the kitchen as we normally do. You know, we don't have a dining table, so we're just standing there in our kitchen on the counters.
Those of us that do have dining tables don't use them.
Yeah,
that's only when you have guests over.
Right.
I decorate mine.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
It's got a nice fall thing. Yeah.
And I'm going to town on my chicken nuggies, and I'm feeling like
So it's a healthy choice.
yes, and I'm feeling like my body feels like it's starting to get drunker and drunker, and I hadn't had a drop of booze in a couple of days. I think I had a drink of wine on Sunday or Monday night while I was winding down, but I didn't even finish the glass.
Party.
I know. And I had barely consumed anything other than just some water and coffee. It's little bites here and there during the day, and I could just feel my body just shutting down. I was pacing, and I've only been home for 10 to 15 minutes. I'm pacing around my kitchen. I start sweating profusely, and my vision kind of goes into tunnel vision, and I'm just trying to ride it out. And when you've been so drunk where you're just ready for it to be over, you're spinning. You don't want to be drunk anymore, and you can't go to sleep because you're just so uncomfortable.
You're making the deals with God of the things you'll never do again if He just makes us stop.
Exactly. And I was there, and so I ultimately ended up sitting on my couch, and Mrs. Brandon is clearly worried. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm just tired. I'm not feeling very well. I'm a little woozy, a little queasy, and I just have my hand in my head, and she gets me some water. And she leaves the room for a second, and I try to drink some water. I could barely make it to my mouth, and
like the cup's too heavy.
Yeah, I'm losing strength quickly, and things are just continuing to shut down. Tunnel vision getting worse, and I'm sitting kind of hunched over, and the glass almost falls out of my hand because I can't keep grip with it. And she's looking at me, and she starts going down this list of things that might indicate that I'm having a seizure, because she's going.
Are you prone to seizures? Oh.
I have never had a seizure in my life, and I've only experienced this feeling when I would drink too much. I didn't, and again,
no alcohol's involved.
No alcohol. I had probably had a couple of hits of pot throughout the day.
But normal pot you have, not laced with anything.
I know where my source of my my marijuana comes from, so I know that it's legit, and there wouldn't be anything laced in it. So I'm just sitting here like, okay, well maybe I just need to lay down. And she's going through this list of things like I'm having a seizure, and I'm just going like, yeah, I don't know, I'm fine, I don't know, and I'm drifting further away. I can't hear her. Oh God. And I ultimately lay down, and then all of a sudden this is where things went black, and some time had passed, and I wake up, and I'm surrounded by ER nurses and paramedics and Mrs. Brandon, fortunately, and by this time about an hour and a half had elapsed.
Jeez.
I went completely dark. I passed out. I had trouble breathing. Once I had laid down on the couch, I had started contorting. My face was twitching. My extremities were starting to curl up and tense up.
Is this you remembering this, or you're being told this is what happened?
This is what I've been told after the fact. So I'm trying to fill in the gaps of between the time that I passed out and woke up. And as Mrs. Brandon is witnessing me kind of just become not me, I was just contorting, and I was starting to snore, and I started drooling profusely. Oh, dear God. And I had been laying down for moments, like just a couple of minutes. And at this point, she decides she's going to call 911. And when she's calling 911, she realizes that my breathing has become irregular. So the dispatcher says to perform chest compressions. Oh. So I'm
just what every wife wants to do. Any lover, any spouse, any significant other.
And everything that I'm saying now was delivered to me after I had woken up and been laying in the ER for some time, and it was hard for me to even comprehend what she went through, how she must have felt, why, and if she didn't call 911, if she wasn't there and I had just come home and she was already in bed or something, and I just decided to lay down on the couch, I would probably not be alive today. And so I get into the ambulance. They try to do that finger prick thing on my to make sure that if I have some sort of pain response, and I was not responding. And so they rushed me to the ER. I'd gotten there, and when I woke up, I come to. I'm so confused. I have no idea why I'm there. Like I felt like I was fine. I kept saying I was fine. I was freezing. They were like, "Can we give you a blanket? You look cold." And I said, "I'm fine." Like the whole time, even when I'm near death. I don't want to be a burden on anybody.
Jeez.
So they take me back and they do some scans on me, and just to make sure that my head and my heart were okay, and my chest, my heart had been bruised from the chest compressions.
Normal.
And so that's why we missed the show, because I was left in observation for cardiac observation for the rest of the night and into the next day. I didn't get out of the hospital until about 1 p.m.
Which, by the way, just a quick backstory as well, that between the time of Mrs. Brandon calling 911 and Brandon waking up, of course, she's also frantically calling me, and my wife comes and wakes me up because I'm already asleep, so she calls my wife. And if I get woken up by my wife, I know it's something serious. And she said, Mrs. Brandon's trying to get a hold of me. And at that moment, I'm grabbing my phone, and she had already texted me. And I go, holy cuss word, call her back, because I got to wake up and all that. And so, because Brandon said, oh, that's why we missed the show. I went, we were going to miss the show on Wednesday regardless. Once we got the news that you were in the ER and everything that had happened. And I'm sure some people hearing the story are surprised we were even on the air yesterday. But you got out yesterday, and of course everybody now is like, what the hell, what was this?
So that was the big question to even the ER nurses, because there was no clear signs on the scans, nothing wrong with my brain, fortunately. I did get a COVID test, and I am COVID negative.
Hey, good.
Yeah, and it was one of those quick tests. They just popped it up my nose, and it was like 5 minutes later, hey, you don't have COVID. Great.
Congrats.
Cool. But at the same time, they were just kept asking, like, are you sure you weren't on drugs? Are you sure you weren't consuming anything that you had never consumed before? And all reasonable questions to ask, but no.
Did they do a talk screen on
They
it?
did, and only thing that popped up, and I'm breaking HIPAA laws here, I'm sure. But
well, it's your HIPAA. You don't have to answer the question any further.
I think,
because I've been through this with other people in my life, and that is standard procedure. It's kind of like what we talk about with what cops see all the time.
Mm-hmm.
ER doctors and nurses see this all the time, and their first go-to thing is, okay, you're on something.
Right.
And that's why they do the talk screen, and then when it comes back and it's like it's negative in every way, they're like, uh-oh, we got something going on.
And it was positive for pot, because I'm a user of that, and so obviously their first question was your marijuana laced, and it's totally clean. There's
I already
nothing wrong with
covered
it.
that. Didn't you tell them I had already covered that?
I know, right? And another thing, I take what are those allergy pills? So there was a little bit of residual of that in there. So like, are you sure you're not doing something else? And I was like, no, this is my allergy medicine.
For a lot of people who don't know, depending on what brand it's taking, which you don't have to say, a lot of those allergy pills, remember, they're used as a derivative to make meth.
Right.
And so when they see certain things, they go, oh, wait, let me ask. And so this is all, for people that are hearing this is not like abusive behavior on their part. This is what they're trying to whittle things down.
And they're always going to be quick to say, we don't judge, but just need you to be honest, because they're the ones looking inside you. They just need to try to figure it out. So
usually you like that.
No, I know. And ultimately, it was boiled down to stress, anxiety, lack of sodium, and lack of sleep. And because I had hardly any sleep before, and it was literally my body saying, shut down. You need to reboot. You need to slow down and be kinder to yourself. And this was just a huge wake-up call for me to take my mental health more seriously, because if you're feeling depressed and you're feeling anxious, there needs to be a way to just, you need to make that a priority, because it will affect you physically. It nearly killed me. I was pushing myself so hard, and I put so much pressure on myself that I ultimately, my body was giving out. And if I didn't have somebody at my house there with me, I wouldn't be here today.
Phone number is 888-989-9811, and unfortunately, this is not a unique story. Matt, go ahead.
Good morning, RAD.
Hey.
I actually had the same thing happen on the same day, and that last little bit of what Brandon said about the mental health thing, I think he is spot on with that. I've been having huge amounts of anxiety, and I felt the same thing. I couldn't breathe. I felt my body giving up, and I actually had to call an ambulance on myself. So they did all the tests. Everything came back negative, no drugs or anything like that, but I go back to Brandon's point. Everybody should definitely take this very seriously.
This is one of those things that if this is how the story ends for both you and Brandon and everybody else, this is one of those things we've taken for granted over the last so many years, because the only time we usually hear about it is with celebrities. Yeah. And so we always assume there's something else going on, drugs, things like that. When you hear about Lady Gaga passing out on the stage, or people having to shut down concerts or whatever, back when we had concerts. And the truth of the matter is, it can't be dismissed that if Brandon's right, which I will ask the obvious follow-up question for some of you in a moment. This is what your body does, because your body and your mind work together.
Oh, yes.
And when your mind is telling you through anxiety and through other various physical symptoms that you need to make changes and you don't listen, your mind then tells your body, you know what we're going to do? We're going to send them a bigger message. And the bigger the message, the more your body and mind have been waiting. And so near shutdown, in this case, with Matt, the caller, and Brandon, this is, again, if this is all it is, that level of lack of self-care that, yes, your body will do this. But that does lead to the obvious follow-up question, Brando, of that I believe entirely in the theory, I think it's a provable theory, that what I just said happens.
Absolutely.
However, there are legitimate physical things that they can't test for everything in the hospital without violating your privacy. Are you checking the boxes with other medical people to make sure there's not something that makes it look like, oh, it's just stress, but oh no, it's a giant tumor?
Absolutely, and it's not a tumor. I did fortunately have coincidentally, I had an appointment with my primary care physician on yesterday afternoon.
Already scheduled. And,
one of the things in my discharge was, go from the ER. They said, go see your doctor and follow up with everything that happened here. And I said, well, luckily, I have an appointment tomorrow. And I was there actually going to see him about depression and anxiety and other various things. And so it was fortunate that I'd had that, and I went in and he spent like an hour with me going over everything, and we did determine that it's ultimately anxiety, stress, and bipolar 1 is what we're going to be being treated for. And so I've been referred to a psychologist, and that's going to start next week. So the therapy has been bumped up to a much much more intense program, and I'm looking forward. And I got to tell you that I'm actually I'm very excited to get moving forward in a different direction, because I hate and I gotta quit saying stuff like this, because this is what makes me spiral into those just deep, dark, depressive states, is that I hate being in this version of myself. But I need to also remember how to love myself and to treat myself better and be kinder. And I think that this is a huge wake-up call for me. And if there's anything that could be learned from this, that you just need to take care of yourself and make sure that your mental health is a priority. And it's hard because there's a stigma behind it. You're just supposed to suck it up. Going back to the last segment about how men are perceived and how depression and crying and all this stuff is so demeaning in men. And it's not. If we stuff these things down and we don't deal with them, they manifest in awful ways, in ways that can scare the people that you love, in ways that can potentially make you leave this planet forever.
The other thing that will occur somewhere down the line is that when you or anyone is like in that spot of where maybe things aren't going as planned or aren't perfect, it's okay. Right? It's like not the end of the world, and it's okay, and it doesn't have to turn into anything bad or negative, because we're all human, we're all flawed. There's like no such thing as doing everything right at all, all the time. And it enables you to love yourself more, knowing that, hey, this is just a part of it. I'm going to be doing great going along. And then, gosh, I'm going to feel like I'm not keeping up, and that's okay, because I'm human, and we all reach a spot where we're not keeping up, and maybe we're not doing as good as we'd like to, but it's okay for right now, and it's going to pass. And Rob, you talking about that connection, I'm with you. It's 100%, because I remember living it. You saw it in me. I literally couldn't function on a daily basis, but I wasn't aware of it. Rob was, and he had to sit me down and say, you need to go get help, because it's kind of like, I think maybe with you, Brandon, you might agree with this. It sounds like what's happening is like all those things we learn how to do to shove stuff down, eventually they don't work. They just don't work anymore. Yeah. And you try harder to make them work, and they won't. And your body is like, I'm going to show you how much this isn't working anymore. And I just love you so much. And I'm so proud of you that you're actually going to face all of it, because this is when that happens. When it comes a point where none of that stuff's working anymore, people make two choices. They make your choice of wanting to deal with it and go in, no matter how hard it'll get, you're going to do it. Or they just don't deal with it, and they turn to, substance abuse type things, and they just get worse and worse and spiral. And I'm just proud of you.
So a couple insights. This followed a similar pattern in that Brandon and I had been talking about, prior to this, about trying to, get his head right. And much of it was actually begun by Brandon, to your credit, for the last couple weeks. And the other thing, too, is in terms of you confronting it, just so everybody knows, full disclosure, Brandon was told by me, we can address this on the air or not, and you can share as much as you want. We didn't have to do this. We didn't discuss it at all yesterday because we didn't have time, quite honestly. Plus, I don't think Brandon was up to it yesterday. I mean, he's doing a show after being in the goddamn hospital.
Yeah.
It was tough yesterday.
But even as late as yesterday, I reminded him, you share whatever you want or don't. The fact that you've gone as far as you have, and now this is similar to when you decided to quit drinking for a year. You've now put yourself on public display to where everyone is going to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
It's not just the people in this building. When people listen, they're going to start. And if any of us are missing it, we're going to get the emails going, Rob, are you watching Brandon?
Well, see, and I think that's one of the great things about this show in particular. And I'm not going to be somebody I'm not just to be popular or
right.
get fame or try to live up to the hype of the status of this show. I think one thing that I am proud of is that I have been able to grow up being in a public forum like this and also being held accountable by my peers here, that I feel like I've grown and evolved in a quicker fashion than I probably would, because I'm accelerating things by forcing myself to just do it. Now I have delayed this particular thing for far too long because it's that silent thing that nobody has to see. Nobody has to deal with what's going on in my mind. If I can mask it enough and just and perform and do everything that I need to do, then it could just take a back seat. But it took the front seat, it took the wheel, and it crashed right into the wall on Tuesday. Yeah. And it's time to repair. And I'm grateful to be a part of this and to share it with everybody, because I think it could help.
Even with this conversation, you have to bring up masking. I swear. We're getting tons of supportive emails, and unfortunately, this is not an uncommon thing, so we are aware of that. Hello there, Joy. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, go ahead.
Brandon, I just wanted to say, thank you for coming out, not only with your bisexuality a while back, but your alcohol problems, and now this. I battled all three of what you are doing, too. And over the last couple of years, I've been on medication for bipolar 2, and it was a hard fight. Stay with it. If your medications aren't working, make sure you say something, because those medications were my lifesaver. And I'm on a low dose, thankfully, and through therapy, I've been able to manage my symptoms, manage my anger, manage my depression part, which is the worst. And I just want to say, thank you for being so brave and letting everybody know bipolar is way more common than other people say.
There's another one.
Yes.
You want to go back to the stigma with not just men, but more specifically with men. Brandon and I literally earlier this week or last week had a conversation about medication. And he rolled his eyes at me and got all resistant a little bit, and we had to talk about there's no weakness.
No, God,
and we were talking more about finding the right one is the challenge, but just even starting to think about, okay, I might need some, because Dawn and I have talked before. We've both been on mood stabilizers at various times in our lives.
Yes.
And the right way you do it is you find the right one, which helps you then through talk therapy, and then you get off everything.
I'm going to tell you right now, Brandon, had I not gone on the medication I went on, and I was more on the anxiety, I don't think I would have made it through therapy for that. It was about a year. And I mean, I've done therapy for longer than a year, but for
obvious reasons.
Years I was in therapy. But that first year when everything started coming up that I could no longer stuff down, I wouldn't have survived without, because more stuff comes up, and it's hard and it's terrible, and you already know that, and you're strong and you're a fighter and you're a hard worker. You're going to do this thing. And that medication really helped to get through all of that.
Hello, Megan. Good morning.
Hi, guys. I woke up this morning and thanking God that you guys are talking about this today, because my fiance actually just went through the same thing last night, and he thinks that he's so alone. And it's really hard because a lot of people don't acknowledge the issues that are going on in their brains. And I really give you a lot of credit, Brandon, and I wish you the best of luck.
Now more than ever, too.
you.
I mean, that this is the people are going through this stuff long before 2020, and now we have just injected all of this hell into it, and it's the breaking point for a lot of people. And it is important that people know that they're not alone.